Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining this session talking about the artificial intelligence impact on the workplace. I know that everyone is aware of what AI is, but generally speaking, artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence in machines. And of course, it's already in hype, and everybody talks about it. And some organizations have already started an implementation of some use cases. And we will see more and more implementations going forward. And this will drastically change the ways of working and as well as the ways of living. So for this debate, I have invited four speakers today. We have Simon and as well as Tracy, Chantelle, and Abram, key experts in this domain, by the way. And I want them to kind of first introduce themselves, and then we go into the panel discussion. Thank you very much again, and I hope that this session will provide you with some great insights. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invitation, Julian, to be part of this. So my background, I was a co-founder of a unicorn called Aria that it's kind of like very early days of what we call now enterprise generative AI. So it's taking large amounts of data from a data lake and turning it through kind of a process into expert level reporting as if the data is talking to you like an expert. I left that a while ago. Before Aria, I was introducing technology to boards of like the FTSE 100 companies here in the UK. It was a system called Diligent, and it allows board members to access their board papers securely and electronically. So taking them through kind of the big change of going from a paper book to an online book. That's used by 85% of the top 100 public companies in the UK. It's a $7 billion company today. And now what I'm focused on is really helping companies with their, excuse me, their AI governance, and whether that's at an operational level or at a kind of more at the board level. We'll get into a little bit about the difference between the two, because I've sort of done the governance side and I've done the AI side, and it's a really interesting thing that's playing out, and it's going to be kind of that governance piece is the intersection that really facilitates a deluge of AI in the workplace or restricts it. That's me.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation, you all. I'm Tracy Brower. My PhD is in the sociology of work, how we affect our work, how it affects us. I have written a couple of books. The Secrets to Happiness at Work is the newest, and I write for Forbes and Fast Company as well. And I'm the Vice President of Workplace Insights for Steelcase. And I don't come to you as an IT expert, but I come to you as somebody who absolutely researches work, the dynamics of work, where work is going. And I've researched and written a lot on AI and how that's going to change our work and our relationship to our work. So really looking forward to it, you all.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chantelle Larsen. I'm a human and AI expert, so bridging the gap, I think, between Tracy Simon. My piece is really coming research-led, so I did a deep piece of research into AI across 12 companies, looking at why it was successful, why it was failing. Very much comes down to the human gap. Looking at then how do you bring in the ethics side, because there's a huge risk around that. Looking at how do you bring in the reward side, because we failed at AI several times before, even if we have generative AI now. So it's the transformation, it's the capability side of the humans and AI, reminding what they're good at. They both have the limitations, they both have their assets. So what can we get AI good at what it's naturally good at, and what can get humans better at in terms of what they're naturally better at, and fuse the two so that they can be good together.
So I'm representing Abram AI. It's a startup we have to make sure that we do better with all the people in the workplace using AI. it's in the field of organization change management, and it falls in my background and one of the other 4 guys in the group, and the other 2 are more digital and design oriented. So we're having a digital solution. What they generally see in my business, change management for organizations, is that strategic intention in various capacities with OKRs or with whatever, how big it is, it is translated into what we want from people and with people. So bottom-up intentions, they need to be connected with that as well. And often what we see is that time and quality is scarce. So what we then basically try to do is make the message better, or be smarter about how to interact with the people. And I think that indeed on that path, we think that AI helps a lot in that. We think that AI can support actually all the knowledge that you have around a certain role. That's the angle we want to take. We can fill in the AI, and the AI can help with algorithm how to coach people in their roles. So basically, the best knowledge, not of the one person, but of all, and to help people to understand what they need to do and how they can improve on their career ladder or whatever goals they have. We think that it improves the time and quality of the people in the workplace. So this is the angle we take. And I wonder what we have in this conversation today. I think we have great potential for conversations. So looking forward.
Thanks for your introduction. And I'm going to start with 2 key questions that come across most of the time. What is the level of integration of artificial intelligence today in our businesses and in various sectors, and as well as the misconceptions? Can you please elaborate on those 2 key items?
Yeah, I mean, we're so seeing integration across lots and lots and lots of industries in so many different ways. I think especially industries and organizations for whom tech was an element of their product or their service tend to be a little ahead because they've had to be. But all organizations, even if they're not a tech leading organization in terms of what they deliver to human beings, are integrating AI. I think the misconceptions are actually super interesting. One misconception is that AI is going to take your job. And what we know is that AI is unlikely to take your job, but people using AI are likely to take your job. In addition, the other thing we know from research on AI is it's less likely to take whole jobs, and it's more likely to take tasks. And so that's going to necessitate a redesign of jobs. So like you think about, going to the doctor and you talk to a receptionist, and then you go into the office and then somebody takes down all your information, and then the doctor comes in and talks to you human to human. There are aspects of each of those, maybe the reception process, maybe the data gathering process, maybe the notes generation afterwards, that are AI replaced. But then those human interactions are not necessarily AI replaced. And so that is going to require a redesign of who's doing what, when, how. So that is one misconception, is that somehow AI is going to holistically take over. That may be true for some jobs, but certainly not for all. That's one misconception that's interesting. I think another misconception is that AI is going to make humans lose jobs on a broad basis. And one of the things that we know is that the talent shortage is here to stay. Every developed and developing country has a talent shortage right now and a declining birth rate. And because of the declining birth rates, the talent shortage will last. And so we're going to need lots and lots of technical solutions to how we get work done in addition to human solutions. So that idea of talent shortage is another one in terms of misconception. We absolutely are going to be looking for lots of workers over time. And I think the third misconception, finally, is that AI is brand new and it's all new. And in reality, we've had AI incorporated into our lives and our work for a long time, right? Like GPS is an AI solution. AI has been reading resumes for years. What's newer is some of the things that feel more explicit, right? Like I log on to a video webinar and I get a transcription. That might feel newer if I haven't been used to it so far, or content creation may feel newer if I haven't been used to that so far. And so I think that's the other misconception, is we can reassure ourselves that we've been able to adopt and adapt up until now, and we'll continue to be able to do that as AI starts to become more incorporated.
Thank you. Anyone wants to add anything to what? Yeah, go ahead, Abram.
I do wonder, and it's a question I link here about ethics and identity management, and also the message that leaders in tech at least sent a while ago, that they said, well, let's stop it a bit because we're governmentally not ready to deal with it. So there are maybe not misconceptions, but there are potential threats of not controlling the AI potential, if you will. So I wonder if maybe Simon, maybe Chantelle have something to say about ethics and governance of AI.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
before we get to ethics, I think it stems from the narrative. The narrative was first created by the OECD that basically said we're going to lose 20 to 40% of jobs. And I absolutely agree with Tracy saying that, you know, it's not jobs, it's tasks. However, when we get to, you know, are companies really integrating it, or are they throwing it in and saying, let's do AI? I would be more on the side of actually saying it's not being integrated into the workplace, because we're still on that narrative. And we're very much, although, yes, there is an aging population and we will always have work, or should always have work, there are other narratives that come at a very, for me, systematic level of what's happening. Is that at the moment we have huge layoffs, even in tech companies like Google, right? Are they able to automate? Are they able to put AI in, or are they shifting their jobs to Mexico and India? Which shows that we're not really able to actually yet integrate, because we're still thinking about jobs versus elements of the task. Where they are integrating is where they are heavily understanding the narrative, which is, I think, where Abram and Tracy are getting to, is it is elements of the role. It is elements, Abram, of what you talked about, of what do we have, what can you create the capacity to do, where they're literally working with their people and saying, well, if you were to create more capacity in your role and you could solve cancer, or you could do X, or you could do Y, what is it that you would give the AI, you know, to do? And therefore they're going, actually, the AI could be really good at, you know, fraud detection. And then we come back to your point of connecting back into ethics. I partly agree with you in, like, yes, you can push the AI to give all the knowledge. Then I disagree in some elements, because the knowledge that we have is based on the assumption that the AI, has all of the information, and humans have all of the information and basis of which to make that analysis and data. They do not. A lot of the data is bias in which it's making it. Even from a job description point of view, predominantly a lot of roles, senior roles, sit with men, the way that they're written. If we give AI the data in which to do that at the moment, you will end up with the same basis in products, in solutions of which we do now. So that's the kind of crossover into ethics when you talk about that basis.
Do you think that the layoffs that we have right now in the market, you know, in tech companies, are only due to the integration of artificial intelligence? I believe no, but there are lots of components, obviously. But what's your opinion about this? Thank you.
Not just. I mean, again, it's a systematic issue, right? We talk about, get very political, talk about capitalism. We talk about the cost of financing. So we've shifted between a huge cost of financing, whereas money was cheap before. So companies are having to look at, okay, we don't have the money to keep spending this. We talk about share price. We talk about geopolitical changes, Ukraine, Israel. So it's not just AI. So nothing ever is in a silo. AI is a way, or technology has always been a way beyond just cost saving. It should be, how can we be more innovative, and how can we optimize? So it definitely comes into the picture. I think what I was trying to portray is the fact that even in Switzerland, so I sit in Switzerland, suddenly they've caught on to outsourcing. Now, outsourcing is nothing new for the rest of the world, right? But there's this piece about how can we make jobs cheaper, not how can we do things better and cleverer, which is what I think, yeah, Abram, which I think, the AI has the capacity to do, but the fact that they're doing that means that we're not really looking from a strategic point of view or having the right narrative, coming back to Tracy's point, around tasks, around capacity, around how can we think better, how can we do things more intelligently. So yeah, and it's nothing new. We've had intelligent automation, remember that tagline?
Yes.
For ages, like, oh gosh, how do we do intelligent AI? So it's not just AI, but yeah, I get your point.
It's a combination of a couple of, okay, so.
Well, and I think the other thing that's really interesting is we're seeing all this press about layoffs, but the overall net is more jobs than we have people globally. And so your particular role might be one where you're getting laid off at the moment, or your particular company, but the macro is a talent shortage. And I think that it's important to understand that dynamic because of the declining birth rates, but also job security is not going to come from being brilliant at whatever you do today. Job security is going to come from being able to adapt, learn, integrate. And I think Chantelle's point about integration is absolutely brilliant. Like, we're not just trying to replace, right? We're not just trying to bolt on. We're not just trying to scotch tape AI into our organizations. We need to really integrate, really move it into certain jobs, and then be able to keep people because we've been able to redesign the value that they bring. And just one other thing, and then I'll be quiet for other people. But Abram, you mentioned the topic of identity, and that is the really interesting thing right now, right? We've been really clear, ooh, AI is going to change everything. We haven't been clear about what that future is. And our identity is significantly related to our work. I'm an architect, I'm a designer, I'm a researcher. In a healthy way, we think about our identity related to the contributions that we make and related to the talents that we contribute to our communities and our organizations. And if AI is replacing elements of what we do, that will shift the way we think about our identity and our value to the organization. And that will be a really important dynamic, is how do we make sure that we are clearly articulating, reinforcing people's value at kind of that human level. We can get into all that later, but I think that's a really important point in terms of this human AI connection.
Please don't ever stop speaking, because it's brilliant. I'm just going to piggyback. You've got the individual level, you've got the organizational level. What then is missing to me is really the connection with these government level, because with these changes, yes, whilst there may be jobs at a macro level, the job crisis that we have is that governments have not thought about the impact that they knew was coming, that they're not really looking at, okay, where do we really actually need to reskill people? And also organizations, how do we really come with a different mindset? We talk about growth mindset, but when you see jobs, we can only hire within an industry. We can only hire with this. They're not really hiring for those things. This whole workforce strategy at a more macro level means that we need to think, differently than we are now.
Uplifting the workplace, right? Absolutely, to adapt. So Simon, you want to add something? I think you.
Yeah, I just pick up on just a brief thing that Tracy spoke about there with identity. When AI is being introduced at a lot of large organizations that I know, there's a prioritization around what's the most effective use case that's going to reduce the most hours. That is, if there's a measuring tape there, it's that. So we can say there's going to be reskilling, and I think companies need to be very careful about how they message. Like I've been in companies where there are redundancy kind of conversations. The company's not doing great, so there are redundancy conversations kind of percolating, and no, there's no redundancies, and then 6 months later, oh yeah, there are redundancies, and then there's another round, and people get fatigued, and the whole thing kind of starts to fall apart a bit culturally. So I think organizations need to be clear about, are they actually committing to maintaining their workforce in a particular location with the introduction of AI or not? And it's okay, but if they are, then there is this side channel of active reskilling and a commitment, because there's going to be cost savings coming in on the AI coming in. And so we're actually going to invest a bit of that forward, and we're going to make a commitment that we're going to put you on some programs that will really invest in our future by investing in you, because you're not going to be doing what you were doing. So I think there's a big grown up kind of conversation around work going forward with AI that hasn't really taken shape yet. But the identity piece I wanted to pick up on is, if you're a manager and you've been doing this and building your way up for 20 years, and you have a team of 50, and then AI is introduced and people are rejecting it at that level, people are saying, not on my watch. I don't want this in here. Why would I want to go down to 20 people like that? There's a whole identity crisis going on there, that I've got a small team. Remember how big teams makes it inflate big egos. And I'll just say one last thing, because I wanted to get it in before we finish. It's an important one. That the value capture in this process of AI growing up and kind of seeping through the organization and becoming a sort of wave of change. In that process, there is a real opportunity for people who want to get involved and be part of the exchange of, well, that AI isn't right, but the way we do things is like this, and maybe I can be part of, the program that helps that AI learn what I've learned, which is the mastery of this role, because that's just off the shelf stuff. But we're years ahead on that. We do it this way, and I've done it, and I've adopted it, and my way is obviously saving us so much more, and I do it this way. So there's an opportunity there, I think, again, which I've been part of, where people who have that expert knowledge and are willing participants and are totally into making the AI smarter. Where's the exchange of value? Like where in my contract does it say, when I'm gone, you're not going to need me and another 10 me's for the next 5 years? So do I get a little piece of that?
I think that's what I meant when we were talking about doing it with the person. And you touch on a point that the loss of identity, it's because we are framing it as AI actually becomes part of the workforce. As soon as it was generative, you are managing AI and humans. Your team is as big, if not bigger. There are machines and humans together. It is not being designed like that. That's why it's not integrated, right? Because it's not even being thought of that. So the point even of that frame, two cases which were really good to me that shone out, that build upon your point. One was SVB, two was AXA, where they really then took those people as part of communities to look at where can we get that extra capacity. So for example, for reliability-centered maintenance, they created a new role as the facilitator of the AI, bringing that knowledge in, increasing that, giving them more time to do the great work and keep us safe, on the trains. But the AI was really good at predicting when things need to be fixed, keeping things on the track longer, which is, of course, reducing costs, increasing profitability, those pieces. So when you leave the AI and you help the AI be better at what it is, the human be better at what it is, good at, and you treat it as part of the workforce and design it as part of the workforce, that is how you move from kind of the hype to the execution that we're very much talking about. But that's not the conversation that we're having, that it's actually part of the workforce or actually part of our lives now when we come up to society, if that makes sense.
And part of our workforce strategy and part of our talent strategy, right? We have to think about how we're going to fill jobs and what the future jobs need to be. And part of that longer term strategy is how we'll use AI to fulfill a lot of those needs going forward in a strategic, forward-looking way.
The most advanced research in this area, so that it was always like AI, and then the military actually researched to make it machines. And then this year, February, I then added the people element. So when you actually measure OAI in an organizational network analysis, so you measure AI as a node, you can actually see how the humans are actually really interacting with AI being part of the workforce. So it's fascinating. And then if you do take it as part of the workforce, to even go that little bit further at a government strategy, who are you taxing? Because there is less tax coming in on people, right? Companies are, downsizing, and there is a tax implication to that. So you even get even further. So
Absolutely.
I think Abram, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and there's a lot of potential topics rolling on the table at the moment, but I want to come back to the point that listening to our conversation, one of the taglines that we have is that we combine advanced mathematics with social psychology, and that's in a similar way as high tech, high touch, perhaps. But what we talk about, I think, is both the humans are thinking more, what is my role now? What I have to add? And then hope, belief. We thought creativity, but AI can make artwork. So there is some creativity in AI. So there are things that we have to rethink. And if I just make that very concrete, and I very often in companies see, I'm a little bit afraid of it, I must admit, I see some kind of a top-down mathematical feeling of alignment. Especially, I guess, people in the West are way too brain oriented. Like it must align with straightforward A is B. No, but that's what the AI is good at. We have to be free to be analytical, to think, how can we do it better here? What is the job to be done? And not, how will I do it exactly? Because my goal in the beginning of the year was set and it's that. Like, don't do that. Don't make people be more tied in a job, but make more a space where you say, what are we about? More visionary, more leadership, that we say, well, let's go that way and I will help you with it. But that it kind of forces people to grow further, to be more like a coach, to ask each other rather than to take security from telling what it must be. That is really dumb in companies. It makes people go away. So
yeah,
I think
it's really it's a fascinating topic. I heard a really provocational statement recently. So this is intentionally positively provocational. But this person was saying we should de-emphasize STEM in schools and in education because STEM gives you skills that AI is really good at. We should instead emphasize liberal arts because that is the part of kind of that human piece that AI can't do as well. Creativity, asking questions, creating relationships, deepening relationships, right? Anyway, it's provocational, I know, but I think it's really, really interesting to think about how do we go in the direction that AI isn't going? How do we get even better at the unique human contribution? Because AI will do what AI does best. And we're never going to compete with what AI does best, but we can certainly do what humans do best.
I think that's part of the capability build, right? Because if you're using AI in the right way and you understand its limitations, AI doesn't know what it doesn't know. It can't leap and think. Even if you are creating a picture or just reformulate, and if you try and create pictures in your mind where it doesn't really have great data, because I create a lot of black art, it really, really struggles. So it's like asking the right questions or how do you use it? It's going to be a massive capability for organizations. And like you say, in some ways, it can make you a little bit dumber. I'm a great user of Grammarly, which is AI based. It's been around for years. But sometimes I just, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself because otherwise I'm losing my own capability. English was one of my A levels. And I think in German a lot anyway, Julian, as you know. So, but if I keep letting someone be my crutch and AI be my crutch to do it, it gives me lessons back, but it's actually getting quite lazy in which to do. But that creativity that humans have, that's the secret sauce that we can build on top of. And together, that's where you get the power. And that's not integrated yet.
I mean, that's also, I think I was thinking about a sort of center of excellence for AI in organizations, kind of governing as well the entire AI, right, Simon? That goes to the governance questions that we had as well. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think setting up an AI center of excellence is an excellent idea. Excuse me. It's becoming a bit of a practice where a company would bring a dozen people together into a recognized forum that has different skill sets, and one of those skill sets needs to be AI governance now, and that's largely down to the EU regulation that's been approved, the EU AI Act that's being rolled out. People will have a couple of years to comply, and that is all about establishing provenance of what you're deploying as AI. I think there's obviously quite a lot of reaction in parts of the world, like the places that build all the models, America. I was talking to somebody at a conference in Portugal last week, and his concern is that people innovating on models who maybe open source models, and they create a new one based on a previous one, and then someone goes and does something with that, and they responsible for it, liable for it. But the EU, what they've done is I think a very clever job of just saying, actually, whoever's doing the model, it's the person who's using that model and providing it to their customers that's responsible for it. And so therefore, if every business, a bit like GDPR, has responsibility within it, then the world will be safer, because there'll be accountability for rogue AI. It'll have to be deployed by a company, and that company will need to stand behind it. So yeah, the role of AI governance is growing. It's still early adopter stage at the moment this year, as the regulations are coming into force, but it's one of those new jobs that AI is creating, right?
Yeah.
So
I have a build and a slightly different perspective on that, because the companies that own AI, like Microsoft, are making a crap load of money. And from a data perspective, that's where a lot of the errors will also cause problems in the model. So I wouldn't take away to say, oh, you're building the model, you're doing that, you own that. But yet the people who don't want you to look behind the window, whoever owns that AI, have no financial responsibility, but yet get to make a lot of money over that. What do I mean by that? The data that we have, if it's biased, which it is biased, you just take the account that 47% of women die more in cars. Therefore, there's a gender bias in data, and you have biases going throughout. But that governance has to be augmented. It cannot just be AI. It needs to be, how are we going to make more representative data at our model level, so that we have more representative, fair outputs from that piece. That's one piece. The second piece, I'm part of a group that also does AI for good. And when we talk about, you were talking about Europe and you were talking about the US, there are a lot of companies going into Africa, going into Asia, having AI, and they don't have the same governance as we do, or the luxury of that. And so there are a lot of, not saying people are intentionally going and doing stuff that's not good, but they don't necessarily qualify for a lot of the privacy around that. So when we talk about governance models, one, I think there needs to be a responsibility that goes back to the people who have the data, and two, it needs to be augmented, and three, it needs to cover countries that don't necessarily have GDPR and all the pieces that we do within Europe, because it shouldn't be that they are second-class citizens and they don't have the same privacy rights as we do within Europe.
The other key question I have for the panel is what are the specific change management activities that organization would need to go through to implement artificial intelligence in their functions? I mean, there are lots of change management activities we do whenever we implement projects or changes in corporate functions, but specifically for AI, what do you think that we should be doing differently? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tracy. I will share a link in the chat that I found quite useful. It's from 2020, so a bit dated, but still interesting.
Yeah, that's great. You jump in, Abram. I'll just get us started. I think a really big part of this is I have a kind of a favorite formula for change. So if we want to get people to change, if we want to get people on board, we have to create a really, really compelling vision. Where are we going? What's it going to be like? As complete as possible, as shared as possible, as mutual as possible. Then we need to give people knowledge of practical first steps to get there. And that might include designing with instead of for, asking questions, letting people know exactly how things will change. And when we don't yet know, the questions that we're asking. So knowledge of practical first steps is the second thing. Thirdly, we need a healthy sense of dissatisfaction with the present. And that's a piece that we miss in change management a lot. But what isn't working today, right? Chantelle, you made the great point about we could ask people, oh my gosh, what are the frustrations in your job? What are the friction points? What are the things that drive you crazy, right? Those are fuel for us to want to think differently. All of those things, knowledge, vision, dissatisfaction, have to overcome perceived costs, perceived risks. And we don't want to sugarcoat those things. We want to be honest. We want to treat people like grown-ups and, you know, let them know that there are always downsides to changes and transformations that we're making. But if we can use vision, knowledge, and dissatisfaction kind of overcome, those are the key elements. So when we're bringing people on board, when we're involving them, when we're engaging them, when we're creating messaging, when we're outfitting leaders with change management capabilities, those are four things we can kind of keep in mind. But Abram, I know you're going to jump in on this one as well.
I'm very happy with the clear way you clearly are a mind of a writer who knows how to bullet point things. So thanks, it helps. Yeah, and I always so yes, and I always try to find understanding of what happens in organizations, and then again, I'm in organizations as an organization change person, and then I'm in as a coach or a consultant or a trainer, and I come in and what I see is more and more risk and cost mindedness, and I think that is very good sometimes for the bottom line financially, etc., but very often not very great for the feeling of the workforce. They're like being made into a cog in a machine. And so I think that in the long run, the culture and the fit with, okay, how can we make more money out of these employees? Well, we have to maybe make them happier. Okay, make them happier how? Well, not per se happier, but, you know, look at them. Well, then we have a big problem because many people don't know how to look at people. So I think I always hope and put that into companies to say, hey, yes, but let's see what people want here, and let's and that's real work very often. Let's believe positively. So let's believe positively that this manager is trying to do their best, even though they seem to hammer their people, or that these people are very seemingly so lazy. But what happens here? They want to do the right thing. Let me get out of the way. And how does that look like here? So if we talk about AI in the workplace, then I don't see any problem based on that positive belief. I do agree that you have to find a real issue. So what do you believe? What's your vision about making it better here? So I see, like I said, I see very often people don't get the attention that they need. They are asked to behave differently. No one tells them how that looks like, and they don't know exactly how to climb the ladder with it. So they get frustrated. and they frustrate the process in that way. So what if we use AI to tell what the program is about, to make that more smart, and to load the AI with more behavioral components? That's a way to maybe make it better for the people and to make it more profitable as well. So I don't know, I'm juggling around with these elements like you're specifying, and looking very much forward to doing that more in the future with Bram AI as well. Yeah.
But there is also another aspect in change management is kind of differs from the way we do change management generally, is that with AI, people are a bit scared, because
Are they? I don't know. I don't meet many people that are scared per se. So how do you know they are scared? I want
Yeah, that's like you need to, of course, look at the behavior, right, of people and kind of attitude towards the program. But what I feel, initially many years ago when you wanted to implement shared services, transferring a function into offshore, as long as when you get to these kind of programs, people are generally resistant. So how do you go about making sure that people work with you to embed AI in the business?
I love Tracy's 4 bullets. In practice, I would just change the order of 2 that would do it. I actually think that fear and that engagement, you should do the dissatisfaction or the aspiration first and not come with that vision, because you're not opening up to like, what is it that could be created with those communities? And then you give space for that real vision to come around what could we really do. I mean, I'm an Otto Scharmer person, so it's a very Otto Scharmer perspective of how do you really have real systematic change? How do you presence what could really happen? And from that is what, if you're really making transparent all the stuff that's hidden, all the stuff below the iceberg of the fear of the people who are really excited about it, and you make that actually visible to then have a true conversation about what could AI and humans do, what could that be, then you really get the vision. So I would just slightly tweak the bullets, but absolutely love your bullets, Tracy. I would do that piece first and then the vision, and that's the difference to change that I would make.
Agreed.
Yeah, and there's no sequence involved. It's the 4, and you might do it differently in different sequence depending on the organization. Yeah, absolutely. There's also a really lovely model of a progression of concerns that people typically go through fairly predictably. So we start with informational and contextual concerns. Where is this coming from? What's this about? We go very quickly to personal concerns. What's in it for me? How is this going to hurt? What are the takeaways? How is this going to impact me personally? Then we tend to go to procedural and logistical concerns. How's it going to work? What's going to happen next? And then we tend to go to collaborative concerns. How do we get people on board? And then we get to refinement concerns. How do we make it better? How are we measuring? What's the impact? All of that. We all come at that at different points.
Yeah.
So it feels like they're all happening at the same time. But we also can, I think, as we're managing this, deal with some of that fear or deal with some of the concern or some of the curiosity or some of the excitement, wherever people are. We can think about those buckets in terms of the information we provide and the way that we provide communication on both a push and a pull basis, right? Push, everybody gets it whether they wanted it or not. Pull, I can pull it down if I have more questions. I can pull down something online. I can pull down an FAQ. Leaders are available for me to ask questions as necessary. So I think that multiple methods of support, multiple methods of empowerment, multiple methods of support in terms of learning all make a big difference.
And meeting them where they're at, because I mean, for me, you're describing also like the change rooms, like where are people within that change room, meeting where they're at with what they need and where they are in that.
Totally. Such a great point. And that's about empathy, right? Which is one of those uniquely human capabilities.
Very interesting.
I'm sharing this model from Lippitt Noster that hits a bit our conversation. Not so much of the sequence, where maybe Tracy say there isn't really a sequence. I kind of tend to agree that people need to feel first what is missing. At least the information needs to be there. Like, what's the story? What is the story that other people tell that you're in? And do you agree with that? And then where would you want to get to? So I would agree that there is some kind of logical step, but I don't know the world. So everyone has their own cases where they can see sequences. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's playing back through years of putting AI in, and I think it's very true. It's fantastic, that model. And I loved what Chantelle and Tracy were talking about too. Can I add one thing, Julian? Yes. So I feel like when we're looking at what's going on with knowledge workers, people who are using language as a core part of the job that they're doing, and it's more than what would be classified as knowledge workers. But if we think back to, say, the music industry and what it went through when Steve Jobs sold one hit for 99 cents instead of an album for $12.99, which decimated the business model, and the digitization of music, the Napster, the streaming services. That industry has really gone through such an upheaval in a way at its core kind of business layer and earning layer, that those of us who aren't in the music industry this is kind of the knowledge workers' upheaval time, and the core part of what's up doing the upheaval is this ability to generate language at scale that is captivating, enchanting, and it's also inaccurate. It can't be relied upon. And so we had this, the work that I was doing previously was all very accurate, 100%, had to be right. It's in mission critical situations for large enterprises. Wasn't using LLMs for that very reason. And so the growth of the LLMs that's driving this last 18 months and into regular, public awareness, and then the politicians respond, and now we have regulation. And I agree with you, Chantelle, about countries being exposed. But we have a situation where we have vendors and we have the hyperscalers driving into organizations. There's so much happening out there in the free market of people being able to dabble with it and experiment and make job applications and create great pictures like the ones behind me. And yet when it comes to organizations, it really is happening at a trickle by comparison to the rate of change that's out there. And just something that we talked about made me realize that you have this stack of how you do things, and then you have a vendor coming in, whether it's an app builder or a model. The model guys, the hyperscalers are really wanting to do the whole thing. They don't want you to go to a vendor, someone who's built an app. They just want to be able to do the whole thing. And they say, we can do this. And what we've learned over the last nearly 16 years is that, and this goes back decades actually, is that the actual replacement of the AI replacing the workflow, that is the kind of key bit where so much falls over in an enterprise, or with it, particularly in medicine. And so we really need to be cognizant of all of the learnings that have gone before, even though these fantastic new tools. And it's compounded by the fact that I haven't found anyone who will tell me that you'll ever get an LLM to do something that's 100% accurate. So we've also got this kind of, and you'll have to check that it's working properly. So I want to add that.
Closing statement on your side, Simon. Chantelle, you want to close as well? Anything you want to add for leaders in the market?
I didn't know we were at closing statements, but yeah, look at the time. That's what happens when you're having fun. I think for me, just the huge piece that's missing, even if you look at AI, there's a piece of research over the last 15 years that only 16% focus on the human, and that's why we are where we are. So I think if I take anything away from the conversation and when we got into the elements of change and even when we get into the regulation is the human bit, because actually even in workflows, humans have flaws. We make mistakes, but it's connecting it back to the human is absolutely critical to think of them as an entity together versus separate and not have a negative narrative. So yeah, but I hand it over, I'll pass the baton, summing up.
Yeah.
Could we have Tracy maybe as the last, as she is really great at making these points, if that's okay. Yeah, then I have a little bit, so I'm happy to have this conversation with you. I very much agree to focus on the humans and that idea of having AI as a node in the organization that you can connect to as if it's a human. So how do we relate to it and it to us? I love that. And I'm very hopeful. I don't see fear in the first place more than any other place of change. Change brings fear anyway. As long as we're transparent, as long as we're moving forward, AI is a great tool we can make use, and it's cool to experiment. I like it. I didn't know about it. I don't know mathematics. It can do stuff I can't do. It's great. So let's explore it together. And for one, I have to collaborate with more people to understand AI. So I like it a lot. So thanks for that. And wondering about your last statements.
Tracy?
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting conversation, right? And the places we'll go, right? That I think that was a Dr. Seuss book, maybe. The thing I think is really interesting is that we're actually wired to resist change neurologically. We prefer predictability, we prefer certainty, we shy away from ambiguity and uncertainty. And at the same time, change brings growth, brings transformation, helps us grow as humans. And so that's the paradox of change, right? Like we may have resistance to it, but it is what necessitates growth. So I think my takeaway from all of our conversations about AI has to do with really putting our toes in the water. Try it, roll up your sleeves. Start your own process to learn and adapt and adopt in your own way. And I think when we empower ourselves toward that sort of capability, that roll up sleeves, that work on it, that figure it out, all of those are positively correlated, not only with success, but also with a level of happiness and fulfillment, right? When we feel like we're taking action, when we feel like we're making progress, that really moves the needle in terms of our positive human experience. So I think my takeaway from this conversation is give it a try, whether you're individual, team, organization, give it a try, learn, and then continuously improve from there.
Business agility. That's the conclusion as well. I agree. Well, yeah, we are done.
Any questions?
And now I have some questions. I will post those questions later on to the team. But it's been a very great conversation. I think that I learned as well a lot from you. I will send this video later on. But have a great day, and yeah, I hope that AI will be working with us and in a very intelligent manner. And I think that's.
Thank you, Busihub and Julianne, for making it possible again.
Yeah, we will do
thank you all.
sessions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.